Have you or anyone else ever said, I've never found one good Christian metal band out there? Well, do I have the band for you. Tourniquet, formed in 1990 by Ted, Guy, and Gary. Now this video isn't necessarily an entire history video on the band, although I will leave these Wikipedia excerpts on the screen while I talk about them. But this video is more so a video about their first 4 studio albums, which I personally think are the best 4 Tourniquet studio albums. For someone who has never heard Tourniquet before, imagine if Slayer was a Christian metal band that had a vocalist who could sound like both Tom Araya and Bruce Dickinson respectively, and mix into one person. That's Tourniquet's original vocalist, Guy Ritter. Guy Ritter is easily one of my favorite vocalists of all time, just because of the way he can flawlessly switch between high notes and low notes. It's astonishing. The whole band in general is extremely talented, and it's such a shame that this band is so underrated, but hopefully we can change that soon. So with all that being said, let's go through these Tourniquet studio albums, and I'll tell you my thoughts and opinions on each one. Let's start off with the very first Tourniquet studio album, Stop the Bleeding. Now, if you love thrash metal, do not pass up on listening to Stop the Bleeding, because I think you'll absolutely love this album and the follow-up Psychosurgery. Even if you don't consider yourself a Christian or a spiritual person, I still think you'll enjoy these albums. But for now, Stop the Bleeding is an awesome debut album, and my favorites off the album include The Test of Leprosy, Arc of Suffering, Tears for Cora, The Threshing Floor, You Get What You Pray For, Whitewash Tomb, and Somnambulism, with Threshing Floor being my favorite track off the album. I mean, how could you not like The Threshing Floor? You left us in danger! 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 I still think that after over 30 years, this album still holds up to this day. So you might be wondering, how do you follow up an album such as Stop the Bleeding? You follow it up with Psychosurgery, the sophomore studio album by Tourniquet. This is easily one of my favorite albums of all time because it's so exhilarating, intense, and thrashy. Is that a word? If you don't check out Stop the Bleeding, at least check out Psychosurgery, because this, in my opinion, is one of the best thrash metal albums ever made. My favorites off the album include the title track, A Dog's Breakfast, Vitals Feeding, Spineless Dysfunctional Domicile, Broken Chromosomes, which was actually the song that introduced me to Tourniquet. So when I first started getting into metal, I started listening off to this band called Disturbed. You probably know them. And they are pretty heavy, but they also have their moments of being melodic. And so whenever I heard Broken Chromosomes by Tourniquet, I was like, whoa, this is heavy. You know, I love the song and the message, although I didn't really take into consideration listening to the full album. I just listened to that one song. But I actually listened to the full album this February. But my all-time favorite off the album is Broken Chromosomes. This is definitely my personal favorite Tourniquet album, and I always really like that album cover. Now, although the next album didn't top Psychosurgery for me, I still think this is an awesome listen, and this is actually the last studio album to feature Guy Ritter, and that's Pathogenic Ocular Dissonance. My favorites off the album, however, are the title track, Phantom Limb, Spectrophobic Dementia, Exoskeletons, and Ocular. Hope I said that right. And that's my favorite song off the album. I don't really revisit the entire Pathogenic Ocular Dissonance due to not enjoying it in full as much as Stop the Bleeding or Psychosurgery, although don't let my opinions get in the way of you enjoying this album. And if that is your favorite Tourniquet album, that's awesome. And who knows, maybe I'll like this album more in a few years, but regardless of the whole album, I gotta bring this up because I've literally never seen anyone else talk about this. I love how at the end of the track Exoskeletons, the song goes into the riff of Supernaut by Black Sabbath. And now we've reached the first studio album without Guy Ritter, but instead Luke Easter, who I think was an excellent replacement for the band, as Luke has an incredible voice as well. Luke first appeared on the album Vanishing Lessons, which will be the last album I take a look at in this video, but I will say that Vanishing Lessons has the best title track out of any Tourniquet album, in my opinion, and of course my other favorites off this album are Bearing Gruesome Cargo, Pecking Order, Drowning Machine, Pushing Broom, Acid Head, Twilight, and Your Take. I'd say, in my opinion, this album ranks higher than Pathogenic Ocular Dissonance. I'm gonna have to keep saying that whole thing the whole time. But not above Stop the Bleeding or Psychosurgery. But here's my album ranking on the first 4 studio albums. Number 4, P.O.D. I'm not saying that whole name again. It's a pretty good album, but in my opinion, the other Tourniquet albums are stronger than this one. Number 3, Vanishing Lessons. This album is awesome, but I definitely prefer Stop the Bleeding and Psychosurgery over it. but don't disregard it though, it's still a phenomenal album on its own merits. Number 2, Stop the Bleeding, an extraordinary debut album that holds up to this day and is 100% worth checking out. And of course, number 1, Psychosurgery, one of the best thrash metal albums of all time that deserves more love and attention, and is a thrash metal album I can recommend to anyone who enjoys the genre. And there you go, those are my thoughts on the first 4 studio albums by Tourniquet. I highly recommend checking out Psychosurgery, or even the compilation album, The Collected Works of Tourniquet. If you don't have time to binge 4 full studio albums, I mean, these things about an hour a piece sometimes. Well, I know the collector's edition's about an hour a piece, but I'd say like them individual, they're around like 40 to 50 minutes, so I can understand if you don't have time to like sit down and binge a whole album, but you might put it on when you're doing other things. I will definitely make a complete album ranking of all the Tourniquet albums in the future, but before I go, let me know down in the comments down below, did you know about Tourniquet before this video? If so, did you like them? Did you not like them? And if you do like them, what's your favorite album and song by them? And finally, do you like the older albums or the newer albums? Because I can definitely say I like the older stuff more, and I am so sorry for not uploading videos on this channel. I've been busy doing other things, but I'm finally ready to start making videos again. Most likely weekly or every other week or monthly or whatever. These videos do take a lot of script, record, and edit, so I'll get on a schedule soon. But until then, take care, stay safe, love one another. See ya.